Shivangi, a 10-year-old girl must save her family's village in Punjab from the restless ghost of its horrific past. It's a brand new film on Netflix with plenty of vengeful spirits, beautiful foggy streaks, blood-curdling screams, and a beautiful story to spook the best of us. It's called Kaali Khuhi, which translates to Black Well in English, and its director, Terrie Samundra, who also co-wrote the film, is our guest today on Don't Fear the Podcast. We are so happy to have her today. Thank you, Terrie, for being our guest today. And did I mess up your name or did we say it correct?
No, perfect. Yeah. And I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
We are so glad to have you. Also with us today, Cheeseman.
Hey, Cheeseman here. I'm with scareguy.com.
And Carrie, who brought this great film to our attention.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
All right. You can find us all here at thescareguy.com or on Don't Fear the Podcast here on that hashtag show network. And we are so glad to be talking with Terrie today because this is a brand new film. It dropped on Netflix just recently, and we want to give it the attention that it is due. But Carrie, let me ask a question to Carrie first. Carrie, how did this film come to your attention? Because you brought it to our attention. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard about this film doing press via Dia TV, and I spoke with Terrie a little bit ago on Dia TV's Instagram page, so you can go watch that on their IGTV on Instagram. And so that was more of a South Asian angle, and I thought it'd be really great to give this film even more attention and brought it to the Scare Guy so we can look at it from a horror perspective and just to talk more about this film.
Well, that's exciting. And I know, Carrie, you're going to kind of lead our discussion on the film today because you actually knew a little bit more about it. But I do want to just ask right up front to Terrie. Terrie, how excited are you that this film is now available on Netflix for everybody to see?
Yeah, it's super exciting because I'm used to my films playing at film festivals. I mean, this is my first feature, so it's my debut feature film.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole other beast. But, you know, I'm used to the film festival world, which is smaller. I mean, it's also more protected. So, you know, when the film released, it's like, it released in India and, you know, it was in the top 10 for 10 days. And then it was number 3 for many days in India and Pakistan and I think a few other places. So I was literally meeting millions of people in this huge audience all at once. And there's, you know, nothing that can prepare you for that. But it's really, really exciting because you know, a lot of times, like when you get a small distribution, you're, you know, scrambling to have people watch it. But right now with the election and, you know, so many other things, there's people that haven't had time to watch it. And just to have it like live on this platform is, I mean, it's just incredible and exciting and something that I actually didn't set out to, you know, have the film on Netflix when I first, you know, started writing it. So it's been a journey for sure.
That's cool. Whoops. Sorry. All right. And one more question, then I am going to pitch it over to Carrie. You were talking, it did release in India already. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, is this and it did pretty well in India. Is this, and you would definitely call this an Indian ghost folklore. How would you describe the film?
You know, it's interesting. I think that people have kind of struggled to describe it. You know, it's, I mean, in the way that I see it, because I see horror as a very large umbrella. I mean, I watch genre horror films from all over the world. But I think that some people have said it's a thriller. I don't see it as a thriller. Some people have said, well, it's not a traditional horror film. You know, if you're limited in the genre that you watch or your ideas of what genre are very fossilized with what's already been out there. I mean, I see it as a dark ghost story, kind of like maybe Guillermo del Toro's earlier works, you know, and it has like a social element to it where we're asking questions and talking about, you know, social issues, which of course genre pretty much always has addressed from the beginning. I think it's really more of like a surreal kind of art house where you're kind of subverting genre a little bit, but I mean, it's got ghosts, it's got some gore, it's got jump scares. So yeah, I see it as like a dark fairy tale, ghosty horror film. How's that?
Sounds good.
I definitely agree. And I think I'm so glad you mentioned that the genre of horror itself is just so vast. And so if you limit yourself on what defines a horror film, you lose so much out there. And your film absolutely is a horror film in its own way, but I like the surrealness you mentioned as well, and the more like a dark fairy tale ghost story. And absolutely, it's beautiful, but it definitely has the scares in it.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I was just thinking, like, I watched this, I'm forgetting what it's called now. I watched this incredible German film the other day. It's a witch story. And I mean, it was just so experimental and interesting, but that's the thing with genre and horror. You can play and experiment, and it feels very liberating as an artist. The film, the underlying, I care more about story than anything else, but underlying core issue is female infanticide and gender violence. And I could have certainly, made a documentary or a family drama, but that's not how my brain thinks. That's not how I work as an artist and a visual storyteller. And working in horror just allows space to be so creative and to play. And honestly, it's a horror film, but you get to have a lot of fun as an artist. And I think the actors and the entire creative crew got to have a lot of fun exploring and building something, even the cinematographer, because we shot in a rural village. This village, we found the perfect location that I was looking for. But even the world that we created, we shot in the hottest time in Punjab, and in Punjab on the border of Pakistan and India. And, we were shooting in 120-degree weather with, insane sun. But we built this, kind of, womb-like world that's dark and cold and rainy with, this mist and fog, which is very much like how, the village was when I was a kid growing up and what I wanted to create. But it's just, I feel like horror and anything in that genre space allows you a lot of creative freedom to explore and play, which is what we wanted.
Now, can you tell us about how you came up with this story, and kind of like if there's legends or lore or whatever it was that kind of really inspired this cool story?
Yeah, so it's a mix of ghost stories that I was told as a child. So my mother always told me this one story about the village that she lived in when she was a child. There was a well that was haunted, and there was a young woman who lived there in the bottom of the well with her baby. And people said that, if you left her alone, you'd be fine. But if you went to the well to try to get water, you would fall ill, and a lot of people had died. So that's one story. And then also, when I was a kid, we knew which houses had what ghost story, which we, thought were haunted. I just remember being a kid and sitting around at night and the women telling us ghost stories and my mother telling ghost stories. And, as I got older, I started to realize that some of the stories were actually came from real things that had happened. And, in the way that, history and kind of folklore, history and even family lineage is passed down. A lot of times it's through story. And then, the gender violence and certain things are also based on family experiences and, personal things. So it's kind of an amalgamation of things. And some characters are, people that I know, or maybe one or two people together. It's definitely coming from an incredibly personal
Right.
personal place. So I'm, dealing with also just, which a lot of filmmakers deal with. It's like personal story, generational trauma, those kinds of things, and kind of taking that and going, okay, I'm going to take this, I'm going to empower myself and, kind of work through this, actualize it through a character and work through this.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a fear of like wells after your mom like told you those stories, or like want to kind of stay away? We all like phobias and things. Like I saw the movie Jaws and now I'm afraid of the ocean. Did you have a fear of wells because of your mom's stories she told you?
Oh yeah. I mean, there are definitely things that I was scared of, I think when Carrie, you and I talked, the way that Punjab in particular is depicted in most films, it's this very kind of colorful and happy, joyful place. There's a lot of like song and dance and music, and which it certainly is. But I mean, the villages that, I experienced as a kid, once that sun goes down, once the shadows come in, like there's creepy stuff. Also, I think that kids like ride that fine line between like kind of being able to tap into that other world. And, my imagination just goes wild and crazy. There's still this house next to our ancestral house, which I am so scared of still. And that house was in my nightmares, like my entire life. There were a bunch of stories, and the bricks falling down actually come from that house. And then it comes from my house because, when I was a little girl, I fell down these brick stairs that had no railing. And, I was convinced that it had to do with the house next door. And then at some point in the past 10 years, the brick staircase fell down completely. So there's a lot of stuff tied in that's real.
Wow. It's kind of like cool. Like growing up, I do know that like, I remember my first neighborhood, there was the house in the neighborhood that did not turn its lights on at Halloween. You don't go to that house. And it was a scary, we made up all kinds of ghost stories. And then when we moved to our new neighborhood, there was a house that was being built and it never got finished being built. And we actually came up with ghost stories for that house, why it was. So it is kind of cool the way like the children of a neighborhood will come up and will kind of live out the ghost stories of that neighborhood. I do have one question that, to go back to something you said, and this is just my own ignorance about it. You said the film also was based on some gender violence. Could you talk about that a little bit? That's something I'm unfamiliar with what you're talking about there.
Yeah, I mean, it's, so there's layers, like, it's like I'm addressing the system of patriarchy, which affects all of us. Mm-hmm. But with the gender violence, I'm in particular talking about the skew towards wanting to have a male child or male children.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would hope that now the conversation would evolve even more and shift, because I think more and more there's an understanding that gender is just a social construct. But what I'm addressing is that even with like when a child is born, they're already assigned a particular role and all of the societal obligations on them. So, you don't even have the opportunity to decide self-determination even in that space. But, there's always been and still is a skew towards the male child culturally. And I feel like, the world over, but in particular in my culture. And, I come from a family where there were not a lot of boy children. And I remember very specifically one of my mother's elder aunts, when she met me and my sister had just been born, she basically said like my mother was cursed. And my mother was also given the pills, the medicine that's addressed in the film to try to help her have a boy child, which my mother resisted. And my mom comes from a family of three sisters. And, when my youngest aunt, my mom's youngest sister, my Masi, when she was born, it it wasn't celebrated like it would be if she had been a boy. That's the reality. And of course, you know, she was loved and cared for and adored, but there was definitely disappointment that she wasn't a boy. And so I'm addressing those things, as well as, you know, just kind of underlying gender violence that happens in all sorts of ways. So there's female infanticide, you know, it's an older practice, but it still does occur. And then there's also female feticide. And, you know, I'm certainly not saying, you know, I'm very pro-choice, but what I'm talking about is, you know, choosing to have, you know, gender selected
Right.
Children. That's what and it's actually, even if it's outlawed, there are ways where people can go to somebody who has, you know, like a backdoor kind of way to find out if you're going to have a boy or a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, those are those are the realities of what I'm addressing. And I'm not, I mean, I do want to say I'm not trying to like talk about the entire culture all at once. Like, really what I was interested in is exploring one family, one village, one small story. But within that, you know, it does address those things.
So, Terrie, you mentioned how just the story and the history of it is very personal, but you're also addressing a larger context. What has the reception been for you? And was there a goal of like just raising awareness and having this be seen around the world and an American audience? Because, you know, people maybe from India would be more familiar with the subject matter, but, you know, one, what has it been like for you of the reception of it? And then was there a goal or intention of spreading awareness to other countries about what's going on there? And maybe if it happens in other countries as well?
You know, actually, no, there's not a goal to spread awareness because, I mean, I think if I wanted to do that, I should have made a good documentary. You know, I am part of groups of people who do social justice work around the issue. But if the film and the story brings up questions and it raises awareness and people are talking about it, I'm very, very happy. Like that is certainly what I want. But first and foremost, I'm a filmmaker and a storyteller, and my job is to make a well-crafted film with a well-crafted story. And in that journey is woven in the issue. And in that way, I hope it actually becomes something that's deeper and that you live with. I think that's the goal of like any good film, and especially any good genre and horror film. You know, for example, like if we're talking about like a zombie film that, you know, you take it apart and you're like, okay, this is actually about capitalism, or it's about class. Or you talk about Godzilla and you're like, okay, this is actually about Hiroshima, and it's about it's actually about war. You know, that's what I think the power of art is, and the power of cinema. I think that if I had set out to make this like an issue-oriented thing, it's not really my style, because it's a quieter film. It's you know, a more surreal. There's not a ton of dialogue, and you know, that's my style and that's my interest. My interest first and foremost is a filmmaker and a storyteller, and I think, but my work is always going to be political because I believe the personal is political. So, you know, all of my stuff has always had young women and women front and center, and it's always had, you know, just naturally a feminist angle. That's just, you know, who I am. And also, you know, I didn't set out to make a film that was going to be universal, because I actually don't find that universal films are all that interesting. I think that things start to get watered down. I'm actually interested in nuance. Like, for example, I watch a lot of Korean cinema. I mean, there is literally, I know that there's things going on. Like, for example, in The Wailing, there are things going on in that film culturally that I do not understand, and it's okay. I don't need to understand them. I actually appreciate that the filmmaker is not going to sit there and try to expositorily tell me everything. I actually think it makes it more powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love that explanation, and you've kind of touched upon, and then I want to applaud you for, you're getting to the truth of a story, and it's personal, and that's what makes something essentially resonate, because even though it is so more almost specific and personal, it's able to resonate with other people because they recognize that truth as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Like, for example, in the film, we have this thing called a teragi. We don't ever explain what it is, but I think that with symbolism, and generally, I think people understand that when you have a talisman, it represents an ideology that a core group of people kind of all adhere to. So, there's certain things, and there's cultural things. For example, there's the story of the chidi, the bird, and the crow. That's a Punjabi thing. When somebody's pregnant, you'll say to a child, like, what did you see on the roof? Did you see a crow or a sparrow?
Mm-hmm.
And that means, am I going to have a boy or a girl? Now that is something that's woven within the film. It gives it texture. It gives it this kind of very specific cultural nuance. And I never wanted to explain that. I actually think that I just find that more interesting. And even for me as a viewer, when I watch other films, that's what I'm interested in.
Can we talk for a minute about the actors and actresses that you had in this film? Because they were pretty impressive, especially, and I've got to point her out, especially this young girl. She really captivated this film. Can you tell us a little bit about her, and then this actress? I know that she is just such an accomplished actress. So
yeah, for sure. So the young girl is Riva Aurora, and I had worked with her about 7 months prior to making the film, because we did a test scene. And she is just phenomenal. She's, from a very young age, decided that this is the path that she wants to take. She's super committed, and she's really fun. And it was a really demanding set. Half of so we shot for 32 days, and pretty much half of them were nighttime shoots. And again, we were shooting in a rural village on location, in a house that, a farmer family lived in. There's, she's a city kid, and we're in a village, and there's cows and, all sorts of stuff going on. And she was just up for it. Actually, all the kids in the film were phenomenal and so fun and amazing. And I really love working with young actors. So they were
also, Terrie, I was going to say, mention how old she was while you were filming as well.
Oh, yeah. Riva is just 10 now. So
wow.
She was hardly 9. Yeah. Very, very, all of them. And then, I brought my daughter, who's the exact same age, with me as well to make the film. And she's in the final scene when we have, all the girls. So behind the scenes, we really built this kind of sweet family. And I made sure the girls were, just really well taken care of and protected. And, you always have to do that when you're dealing with such heavy material, but they really got it. And working with kids is so fun because they get storytelling. And when Riva and I first met, we had fun. Like, we watched clips from Pan's Labyrinth, and kind of building and she had this long hair, and I really wanted her to have this haircut. Like, I was very set for her to have this haircut, which is, of course, kind of like, Tale of Two Sisters, kind of this classic haircut that I wanted her to have. But yeah, Riva's phenomenal. And, in Indian cinema, young girls in particular really do not have an opportunity to helm films. It's pretty rare. So she really,
Right.
took it on. And then the other actress is Shabana Azmi, and she is, a veteran, like you said. I mean, she is like the grande dame of what's called parallel cinema in India, or art house cinema. She's been working for 40 years, and I grew up watching her when I was a kid, and she's just so incredible. And I feel very, very honored to have worked with her as my first feature. The fact that she said yes to the script, it was like, I was really shocked. She was our first pick, and she said yes, which was really great. And, all the actors work differently with Shabana every day. She wanted to go over her pages, and every single thing she had a question for me, and I needed to be able to not necessarily answer it, but she needed to know that I understood what we were diving into. She's also really fun too. Like, she had fun getting, going underneath like the rain machines and getting muddy and milking a cow. And I mean, I think it was a really fun role for her, especially as an actor. I think the roles that she gets now are, which, I'm sure she's fine with them, but they're more like the motherly roles. I don't think she's getting to do as much like kind of like crazy physical stuff like she got to do with us.
Yeah, and she normally just has this very dignified, almost regalness to her. So it was so great to see her really let loose. She had the unibrow. And
she built that character. She came on like the first few days. She was like, "Can I do a unibrow?" And I was like, "Yes, that's brilliant."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about your like inspirations as a filmmaker that you kind of like put into this film? Like, were there certain like horror movies or just other like cinematic masterpieces? Like, were there any influences on the film that you kind of brought in, like a vibe or personality or a certain filmmaker or movie?
Yeah. So, when after writing it, and I wrote it with my husband, who's my creative partner and co-writer, Walter, we pretty much collaborate and write everything together. So after that, we made a lookbook, and that's how I pitched it. And I was very specific on the look and style and aesthetics that I wanted. Again, the Wailing, the look of the Wailing, it's very blue, it's cold, it's rainy, it takes place in a small village. So that was a big aesthetic, I guess, corner stone for us. And then I think a lot of Korean stuff, like, and then some of the kind of classic ways in which the young girl from Pan's Labyrinth, like the wardrobe I wanted, we our designer like made all of the costumes. It all has like a very classic look. The village is very, I wanted everything to feel kind of timeless. Like, there's no cell phones, there's no billboards, there's no kind of indicators really of what time you're in. So I think those two, and then again, like Tale of Two Sisters. I also, I love like the Babadook. I mean, this isn't a film like the Babadook, but I look to the way that, she makes her films, and she's such a master. And so she's so contained and specific about what she wants to do and practiced, and like, she's not doing 5 million things. It's like, she picks something. It's like, that's, Jennifer, that's what she does. I
love films where the setting is so much a character in the film, and it so much informs what happens. It just makes it so much more real and so much more vivid. Can you talk for a second? I heard a little bit about what you're saying. Is this similar to a village? Your upbringing, were you brought up in a village similar to this?
Yeah. So, I mean, things have changed a lot, even in the past 10 years. But the village that's in the film is very much the village that I had in my mind, which is the village that I lived in as a small child. Now, my village, it still has those alleyways, and there's a lot of things that are similar, but there's a lot of things that are not. I mean, there's just been such massive change. And yes, the village is very, very much a character, and we, that was very intentional. And it, when the family is driving into that space, we wanted it to feel like they were going into something that was like a maze, and they were not going to be able to get out until they figured out the maze. Shivangi in particular.
Right, because it was like I was struck with how it's, and maybe this is very cultural. Like it was a maze, but all the families were very close together. Their homes were very close together. And was this more like a multi-generational family, or just a large family that all were kind of supporting one another, or also like a community? Like when I grew up, everybody in our neighborhood, all the parents in the neighborhood knew they could help to corral the kids in the neighborhood and correct them and stuff. Like we all took care of each other. And that's what this kind of reminded me even of my upbringing a little bit. But I was just wondering kind of what was the family dynamics in something like this? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, like in my village, it's my family's clan. I mean, in particular, I'm talking about my grandfather's village, my Nankapin, which is like an earlier short that I had made there. We made it, everybody pretty much that's in it, except for some refugee kids, they're all part of my family, and it's your clan. So it's like, in that village, I mean, many of the elders have now died, but it's like my grandfather's cousin, my grandfather's elder brother, it's like, and everybody takes care of each other's kids. And also at the same time, everybody knows everybody's business. There's no privacy. And, in Punjab, in a lot of the villages, the rooftops are all connected. So when I was a kid, we would, you wanted to go visit somebody, you just go on the roof and then you just walk over to the next house and then climb down and say hi. That's awesome. I remember that as a kid. I mean, things have changed, but there's a lot of things that are the same. But the two sisters live next to each other. I mean, generally, most people would even live together, but we made it that they live separate. The Satyamasi, who Shabana Azmi plays, she's gained a little bit more agency in her life and moved from her sister's home, and her sister now, who is a widow, her elder sister. So, but yeah, you all pretty much live. It's just all big, one giant big family.
Now, Terrie, all of us here are huge fans of practical effects, and I absolutely love the effects in this film. If you can talk about how you went about making those and actually executing it, because it just looks so cool, and I feel that really helps sell the realness of the film.
Oh, I love that you said that. I mean, we wanted practicals. There's a couple of things where it was like, the womb, I love the womb. The womb actually deflates, but we do have footage of the womb erupting, and it didn't quite, we were not sure what to do. Like it was almost like the Demogorgon kind of thing, like it just, which is what I envisioned. I mean, originally what we wanted is like somebody inside there to kind of come out but we had a lot of fun with the practicals. Now, the thing is so the rules are so strict in India that you can't even shoot real frogs. So the team, we built, we made all fake frogs. I mean, we wanted even more frogs. We wanted it to be like, that P.T. Anderson film where it's like raining frogs. Yeah. But so all the frogs are fake. And then, our art department was just so fantastic. They built the staircase, they built the room upstairs, and they made it to where it was going to crash at the end. But our intention was to try to do everything practical and then see if it needed special effects at the end. So or VFX so that we wouldn't have to be dependent on that. And it has very, very minimal VFX. I mean, we're also working on a super tight budget. This is a very small budget film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
the makeup was scary. Oh, go ahead.
No, thank you. I was just gonna say the makeup, the ghosty girl's face and how that looks. Oh, so good.
Thanks. Yeah, I will let the makeup dudes know that. They'd be super happy to know that. We had fun. I mean, I think I gave them a reference of again, why am I forgetting Guillermo's film with the boy?
Devil's Backbone?
Yes. So that was the ghost in that was a reference for the way that he looked, and and oh my gosh, the Hetvi who plays the ghost, she was just so into being a ghost, so that also helped.
That's cool. I love it.
Is there any like drawings from legend or stuff people cited that you try to kind of like include in this? Like how you talk about the makeup, the look of the scariness of all that. Like, was there anything from legend or just art from that kind of area that inspired this stuff, the folklore?
Well, the paste. So there's it comes from the practice of Kurimar, which literally translates to girl death. And there was a paste, like this oleander berry poison that was given that was like this dark paste. So we, wanted that to be a reference for the paste that the people who are dying throw up and, basically choke and die from. So that was from that. It's the paste that it's the paste that the baby's given at the end. Mm-hmm. And actually, there's a lot of things that went on the cutting room floor, but we got a lot more people in alleyways dying from that and throwing up and stuff, but it just didn't make it into the film. And that was fun. My ADs had to test that out. It was just like toothpaste and charcoal. And then yeah. And then the book does have some like old legend stuff in it. One of the stories that she's reading is actually a story that my mother wrote, and it's about the chitty and the crow, the sparrow and the crow. And like when the grandmother is being taken to get cremated, usually, traditionally, the eldest son is the one that does the rites, which is to place the fire on the body's head to start the cremation, and instead the ghost basically does that and that has layers. Like there's the gender stuff about that. There's also she's just enraged and takes that kind of right away from her brother. And then also, when we shot that, there's that underlaying of the bridge where there's just like flocks and flocks of sparrows that were living there.
Oh, that's a pretty scene. I like that quite a bit.
Yeah. So there's those. Oh, and then there's when a baby gets possessed, she has, she's walking and she has her hair loose and she goes to the temple. Mm-hmm. That's actually a thing that's told to young girls and young women. Like, don't walk out in the evenings with your hair loose or you'll get possessed. So there's just like these little things that, you wouldn't know it, if you didn't.
No, it's really great. And for those who may not be familiar or know about the film, I think we haven't really given a description of exactly what happens in the film without giving anything away. The film is about a family who must go take care of a dying mother, or go to the bedside of a dying mother, and while they do, they encounter basically ghosts from the past that the young girl must kind of stand up and kind of defend her family against. I guess, is there a better way to describe the film?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great description. I think, like in a lot of films, like what you think is the ghost or the monster is really the thing that's being trapped and asking to be set free. Mm-hmm. So the ghost, calls to Shivangi, and she's basically a reflection of herself. She looks at that well, and she sees her aunt, and some people who have asked, like, well, why is she 10 years old? If they're like doing math, they're like, if she had died at this age, she would have been whatever. I'm like, well, that doesn't, they're not working with like mathematical, logical rules. But, she's a reflection of herself. So through her journey at the end, when she takes the baby and, she goes down the stairs and the house is falling, and she looks in the mirror. She sees the ghost, and then the ghost changes to a reflection of herself, and she says, I will save you. She's basically saying, I'm claiming my own existence. I'm giving myself permission to exist and take up space.
That's a beautiful scene. That was just, it was a very striking scene. It really was.
Thank you.
What do you hope people take away from your film, Terrie?
Well, first, I hope they have a beautiful cinematic experience. That's what I care about, because this is my art form and it's my first feature. And, those are, I hope that they have, I hope that they're moved by it. I hope that it sticks with them. I hope it's not just another kind of forgettable experience. And I also hope that I've built in enough kind of visual layers that it gets into that deeper subconscious, which I love about film. Like you could throw in things and it's like you don't even know sometimes that you're perceiving it till later or what it means. And then I hope that I've, people who are in particular not know about the culture, and even people who do know about the culture, for people who are part of the culture, like, so, I have had young women reach out to me, and also older women too, say, there's not really very many Punjabi filmmakers, very, very few, and addressing, these kinds of issues and showing this kind of layered storytelling. There are people that I admire and love. There's one filmmaker whose two features have, gone to Cannes. He's like kind of art house Punjabi filmmaker. So that's one thing. I'm definitely making work for my community. And that's really, really, really important to me. And then I hope that, I also attempt to make films where I'm not explaining and telling everybody everything, so that they can bring themselves into the experience. I like to treat the audience like they're smart, because they are, and bring their own, own world into it. That's the kind of filmmaking that I love. Like I like to, as I'm sitting there watching it, it's starting to bring up memories in my own world, and I'm like being allowed to, the filmmaker is drawing me in and giving me space to make it my own experience. So that's what I attempt to do.
Well, we are kind of bumping up against the end of the interview. So Luke and Carrie, if we have some final questions here for Terrie.
I'll go ahead. So in horror movies, a lot of times they're like, how much blood did you use in the movie? And this has a lot of that, the stuff coming out, the paste coming out. And you talked about there being other scenes that weren't shown in the film. Supposedly, how many gallons of paste do you think were used in the making of this film?
I'm not sure, but I know that we were running out, and when we were in Bombay, we had ordered it on Amazon. I know there was a panic point, and we were like, "Oh my God, how are we going to get this charcoal paste?" But it was a lot. It was toothpaste and charcoal, so we could have figured it out. And there were. I have this beautiful and really funny picture of one of our crew members who made the blood, and he's just got like blood all over him, and he's like drinking a cup of coffee and laughing. And that's like one of my favorite behind the scenes pictures. That's the stuff that I think is so fun. We had so much fun when Baby gets possessed and she bites Shivangi, and it was, we had a rain machine. It was nighttime. She's being dragged. There's mud. And those poor kids, like, I put them to work. But me and my 3 ADs, actually, 4 of us, we're like, behind the camera around her, we're yelling beast, because that was like her cue. That was like her word. Like when you go into beast mode, you go crazy. And so we're like, beast, beast, beast. So that was really fun.
Cool.
Nice. Were there any happy accidents on set where something did not go as planned, but that actually turned out to be better?
Yeah. I mean, so I think that the buffalo at the end, she was supposed to walk with Shivangi, and she just kind of like keeps on walking off frame. I think that was, a great happy accident, because you're like, oh, she's just going off to have her own life. I also thought it brought a little levity and humor to it. That the buffalo was always like a point of humor for all of us. There was one scene in particular that got cut, and I always am like, I don't know if we should have had it. Should we have cut it? We just had to, that's just part of filmmaking. You're constantly having to make, it's not like bad compromises, but you're having to always make like choices and decisions last minute. So there was a scene where it was supposed to be a group of men at night, and people have addressed, because I wanted to make a film with women front and center, but also women that it wasn't just like a black and white male, female kind of thing. I mean, they are also culprits, and they're also, victims of the system. It's more nuanced than that. And that was a scene that we had to cut, and I was really sad about that. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's actually better that we cut it. So yeah, there's a couple of things like that, that we had planned that I think at the end actually were really happy accidents.
I did notice the buffalo walking off at the end, and I told Luke, I said, look, it's just walking off all by itself. Taking it down. I did like that. That was good.
Peace. Poof.
Yeah, totally. It's like, have a good life.
I do. And my last question is this, is the style of this ghost story is very much, it's for people, and I hope this is a compliment, because it's one of my favorite things I've seen these past few years. On Netflix, there's this thing called The Haunting of Bly House, which really does deal with the ghosts of your past and it's more about the ghosts of your past and dealing with your past than it is actual terrifying ghosts. And I don't know if you have seen the Bly House, or even like
Bly Manor.
Bly Manor.
It's a Bly Manor. Are you combining the
Bly
two?
Manor. Hill House, Bly Manor.
Yeah.
That's right. Hill House and Bly Manor.
Combine them. Yeah. It's 2 seasons. He's making it easy.
I liked Bly Manor. I did like Bly Manor. I felt it went on. It was a little bit indulgent and went on a little bit too long, whereas yours was very economical in how it told the story. So I don't know if you have had a chance to see those films or those series or not.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm always like, first of all, I'm stuck in my apartment. So I'm like, give me everything. But yeah, I have seen them. And there was actually a series, a Netflix India series called Typewriter that came out. Oh my gosh, I think it's been a year now. And I was really interested. There's not a lot of horror being done there. So I'm always kind of interested in stuff like that. But yes, I also I like the way that Bly Manor and Hill House was done. I like horror that again, it's like, Babadook is about a woman, and I think there's different interpretations, but my understanding, and I think it's the general understanding, is a woman dealing with grief and falling apart as a parent, and the loss of love and grief of losing her husband and the father of her child. So I'm always interested in horror that's dealing with those kinds of things. I'm also so excited about, of course, all the stuff that Monkey Paw's doing. I think they're dealing with a lot of those kinds of things as well.
Nice. Well, thank you and I do have to ask one last question. Do Indian audiences, do they like ghost stories?
It's been a really interesting ride for me, because the film has been received very hot and very cold. Like I've gotten reviews which are like, a film like this only comes once in a blue moon, and you're doing like a totally new, different thing. There's not a lot of genre like this. And then there's other people that are like, this is not a horror film, or why didn't you just make this topic but not make it horror? Because I think for a group of people, horror is seen as a form of cinema, which, it's like, I think John Carpenter said something, he had said something about like how he's treated around the world in different places. I don't think that genre and horror is respected by everybody there, which it isn't. I mean, and which I actually kind of like it. I'm like, okay, go for it, let's do this. Like, we can like, I find that exciting because cinema is a new art form. It's one of the newest art forms, and so there's a lot of things that haven't been done yet, and we're all exploring and playing, and I don't believe in kind of these like fossilized notions. It's like, just like how people have this thing where they're like, oh, these are the greatest films. This is the film canon. It's like, I want to deconstruct all that, So, and I don't know, I don't know if I'm doing that or not, but that's what I'm interested in. And so yeah, I mean, it's certainly a film that's been seen by a lot of people. A lot of people are talking about it. I've gotten like so many beautiful responses. There's been great reviews, and then there's also been reviews that are like, "This is slow. It's not a horror film." So I'm like,
whatever.
no, yeah, that's fine with me. Honestly, like that is just part of being like an artist and being vulnerable. You cannot control that. All I know is that I think we made a beautifully crafted, wonderful film. I think every single person on our team, like no one slacked off. Everyone it is like, every single frame of that film is meticulously put together. Yeah. So I stand by that film. I like the film. I think it's wonderful.
I do too. And I
liked it too.
I think that's what I was getting at with Bly Manor, which a lot of people say it's not really a horror series, but it's a beautiful, haunted story. And I think your story is actually, I would say that your story is a little bit scarier than Bly Manor is, but it is also, it's a very economically done, beautiful story about family and and tumult. And I just think that it was very well done. Congratulations on such a great first
Thank you.
film.
Yeah. Thank you.
And for those who have not seen it yet, just go get your Netflix subscription. Get in there and watch this film. You can find it on Netflix right now. Terrie, is there anything else about the film you would like to tell us before we have to say goodbye for today?
No, I mean, please watch it. And, if you want to connect with me, I'm on Twitter and social media. And I always love to connect with other filmmakers and writers and artists and audience members. I'm easily accessible, and I like talking about stories and filmmaking.
And so where can people follow you?
Oh, just my name, Terrie Samundra on Twitter or the other places that I waste time on.
And for those of you who are just listening and not watching it, the name of the film is Kaali Khuhi. It's spelled Kaali, and then the second word is Khuhi. So it's Kaali, Khuhi on Netflix. Make sure you look it up. It's a very good film.
Also in the description below.
Also in the description here, yes. So.
Oh, and also if you can, if you're able to, I would suggest using subtitles. It's much better than the dubs, unless you need the dubs.
And which means black well, by the way. It translates into black well. All right, congratulations so much. Hey, Cheeseman, where can people follow you online?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram here at Cheese on Couch, and also on thescareguy.com. And I just want to encourage you too, just with like the respect horror is getting with films like Get Out being nominated for Academy Awards. I think we're in a time where it's great for horror to be able to have strong themes and strong filmmaking. So keep doing what you're doing, because I think we're in the perfect time that whatever version of the film you do and whatever genre you include in that, it can get that kind of cinematic respect.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This is really fun.
You. And Carrie, where can people find you? By the way, Carrie, thank you for bringing this to our attention. This has been such a joy.
Right. No, I'm super excited. I was happy to talk with Terrie again and dive more into the film and include you all to see your thoughts on the film too.
So you can follow her at Carrie
right
D. Green. Yeah.
And I was going to say, sub versus dub, you can go check out my YouTube channel. I'm talking Sword Art Online with the dubbed English actors. So a whole different kind of dub versus subtitles. But yes, I watched this film in subtitled, and it's easy to follow. It's not one where you have to pause, rewind, or anything like that. Because some movies you do, you're like, wait, what was that? Go back. But no, definitely easy to follow. And go check out the film. This way. There we go. Go check out the film.
Yep. And Carrie, what is your YouTube channel?
Yeah, you can just look up my name on YouTube. And I have two. So one's personal, one's personal and professional. So it's you'll find it. Just search my name on YouTube.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. By the way, and everybody, please follow us here at thescareguy.com. That's the website, thescareguy.com. You can find me at James D. Fry on Instagram or Jim Fry LA on Twitter. And as always, follow us here at that hashtag show. Thank you so much. Thank you, Terrie. Everybody have a great day. Enjoy the film.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.